Hello everyone, Ered Luin here, and welcome back to the Edain mod, where today we will be talking about not just the Dwarves of Erebor, not just the Dwarves of the Iron Hills, that are all the way over here, once I get the camera moved over there, and we'll also be talking about the Dwarves of the Ered Luin, all three dwarves, because that is what was requested. That is the incentive I gave to make everyone finally pick the dwarves, was just saying, you know what? Let's do them all in one, because honestly, there's very little difference about with each dwarf faction, other than the obvious. But in general, they have so many similarities on top of the things that they actually keep, and ignore the constant things here. The fact I have all three of the factions here at once and all their heroes is all thanks to the God mode over there. And it is causing a few minor crashes in the game's design. As you can see, there's no placing on here, but there is on here. So I'm going to make this as quick as possible before the game crashes. No, I'm joking. This is going to be a longer video than the other faction guides so far, but hopefully we won't have any problems. So firstly, as before, we got the core mechanics, then strengths and weaknesses, how I prefer to play them, and then how best to beat the AI using them, with a few obvious changes. With being strengths and weaknesses, I've picked one strength and one weakness for each dwarf faction, on top of just general strengths and weaknesses of each of the dwarf factions. I've also given a slightly tweaked version of how I play at them, because each faction plays differently. Very minor changes, but they are still important to provide. So let's begin with the mechanics, which is the main thing. 3 sub-factions. You choose at the beginning of the game to play as the Dwarves of Erebor, the aggressive, structure-building, armor-rendering faction that's known to just steamroll through everything. The Dwarves of the Iron Hills, a more defensive, sedimental faction that prefers to keep its defenses strong, but also has a unique look at cavalry with the Ram Riders, which you can get from the Iron Hill Scouts, and then pay extra when you have Narin. I don't know where the hell they think they're going, but they're not. Oh, for Gollum. And then finally, the Dwarves of the Ered Luin are the most utility heavy of the dwarves. They have a lot of speed, more than strength. They rely on their heroes a lot more than the other dwarf factions, and just use a lot of non-dwarven tactics. Ignore the fact there's walls inside of Lake Town. You can imagine where they came from. I had to do a bit of maneuvering on the map because I ran out of space, as you can see here. This did not come out as I had originally planned. But yes, each of these factions has uniqueness in each and every faction. I'm muddling over my words, I'm sorry. And you've also got with each dwarf faction a human ally. With Erebor you have Dale, with Ered Luin you have Lake Town, and Iron Hills currently doesn't. They have the Ered Mithrin Bastion, which I believe is going to be made available for all dwarf factions, but because the Dwarves of the Iron Hills are getting Dorwinian as their human outpost allies. And then lastly, we have, for their last unique mechanic, is the pony camps and what they can give. You can put any of your dwarf units alongside them to get more dwarf units from the other 2 factions you haven't played, get a level up for one of your heroes, or get some free gold. I think. No, it's spell points and a level 5 units. Level up for a hero and fully armored unit, or 1 unit from each of these sub-factions that you aren't currently playing on top of the unit you have. But you can also, with the Elite unit, the Arkham Guard, the Ironbreakers, or the Unburnt, can send them off to get the Khazad-dûm Veterans. And these boys, once you get even one of them, you can process Mithril in your base. You no longer need to put the Khazad-dûm Vets into the forge. to then make it say all your heroes can purchase Mithril Mail, get even more health, even more tankiness, make them some of the toughest heroes in the game by quite a bit. Now then, general strengths and weaknesses before we get into each individual faction. So, in general, they have a simple but effective roster. In your base, you have one unit of each basic type: sword and lord, spearman, ranged unit. For Erebor, you have axe throwers. For Iron Hills, you have crossbows. For the Blue Mountains, you have archers, as you can also see here. Then you have your elite unit you can get from getting elite equipment. And then you have the miner here, which is just a unique version of a siege unit. Because you're not already running too many siege units. You've got the battle wagon, which is your cavalry for most factions. Well, for most of these sub-factions, except for Iron Hills, which does have a slightly more dedicated, heroic cavalry. You have the battering ram, your, I can't remember what they're called, Demolisher crew. And then you also have the catapults of each faction, which are also different. Erebor catapults are the old version from BFME 2 Vanilla. The Iron Hills catapult fires 3 shots as if it was a mighty catapult. And then the Ered Luin catapult, which I haven't got. I'm just going to get one quickly. Quickly just recruit that. And also Shakers haven't got one of them yet. The Ered Luin catapult fires only 1 shot. But the one, obviously, the less shots you fire, the more damage you're dealing, right? Kind of. One guaranteed hit will always do that amount of damage. 2 shots do slightly less damage. But I think together does about the same amount. And then 3 shots, not good against units, but very good against buildings. I think it does more damage to buildings. And then finally you have the Earthshaker, which is a battering ram on steroids, because it also weakens everything else around it. Every enemy building just gets destroyed. And very quickly as well. Earthshakers are very good. It kind of takes away from needing the battering rams. It's kind of sad that the dwarves make neither of these when controlled by the AI. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. Or maybe they just don't know how to. They also have this great control over the map with their mineshafts. You're never really lacking in map control if you just build a bunch of mineshafts. Because it's also good to have them, because it decreases the cost of all your upgrades. And when you get all your dwarves, you have a power that empowers your dwarves. If you have them with all their upgrades, you're going to be doing that. And also, eventually, the lumber mills will just run out of timber to mill. As you can see, there's no lumbermen around here at all because there's no trees left to harvest. To be fair, I picked a very barren map to begin with. You see, you can see they're still trying to find some trees here and there. And now we come to the general weaknesses, is that they have generally slower units. For the Dwarves of Erebor and the Dwarves of the Iron Hills, that is the obvious assumption, because their units are the slowest infantry in the game. You do have, with Ered Luin, not Ered Luin, Iron Hills, the Erimithrin Guardians that get a sprint to make them move a little bit faster. Don't be fooled by that 50%. Their slow movement speed makes it so they move slightly faster than regular units. But you also get the Ram Riders. Erebor does get the Men of Dale, which have a formation to give them more speed, a reduction of armor and damage. And then Ered Luin doesn't have either of those things because their units just have bonus speed inherently given to them. And that extra movement speed is more valuable when you have a more speed general unit. And then obviously these men don't really do anything with speed except just weaken enemies' speed with the Hold at Bay ability. You also have, as I said, no real dedicated cav. Even the heroic Ramrod, you only get 3 of them. And battle wagons are a hybrid between a cav unit and, honestly, a hero killer. Which is a bit weird to say because, but yeah, battle wagons are actually terrifying. When I get to talking about the AI, you'll understand why this entity can be very terrifying if left alive. And honestly, that's all the general weaknesses. There's not a lot of general weaknesses. The dwarves are just generally good overall. And now we come to the faction-specific strengths and weaknesses. So for Erebor, as I've kind of said to begin with, they are very strong siege fighters. Their ability to just do bonus damage to units and buildings. Their pikemen can go into melee mode into sword and board mode by just doing more damage to infantry and structures, by losing their ability to deal damage to monsters and cavalry. The axe throwers in general are just... Well, I've already talked about the axe throwers of Angmar being amazing. These guys are just as amazing, if not even more so, because they can get upgraded, and their ability at level 1 just means to do more damage to anything without heavy armor. And we've talked about how good chop damage is. And then, obviously, the Archangard as well, just more damage, immune to all kinds of nonsense. These guys are unbreakable. One of the best, if not the best, sword and board unit in the game. By which I mean unit that does slash damage, if that wasn't clear. However, you are weak to monsters for the same reason as the fact that you are a very siege-heavy faction. These pikemen, I think, are some of the worst pikemen in the game because of the fact that they have a mode that basically strips them of their pikeman ability. And their ranged unit does slash damage, so monsters are very inefficient. Are very efficient against slash damage. You want piercing damage, and you don't get piercing damage unless you go for Dale and get their quote-unquote elite bowmen. Whereas the Iron Hills have their crossbows and their spear throwers, you know, if you actually have to fight monsters, which you normally don't. And then Dale just have Dale and Ered Luin have amazing pikemen in general, with steadfastness, making it so anything that tramples them is slower, and these pikemen just generally being decent if you need the fast spam of a larger crowd. Because honestly, if you need trample resistance, high revenge damage is good, but against spam and monsters, honestly, the more entities you have, the better. Because the more they trample through, the more they're going to just get locked in. And then they can die. Then we come to the Iron Hills. They have, as I've already said, they are very good on defense. Their units are all just generating around damage and armor. Reduction of speed, bonus armor, and bonus armor by a massive amount for attack range reduction, which you may think is a bad thing, but I say nay. I say that is a great thing because that means it's even easier to death ball. And then cavalry is going to have to go into all that melee. And obviously you've got the Iron Breakers, which are... I don't know. I don't like this unit very much anymore. I used to really like it. But the stuff they lose is unfortunate. And then I'm not going to talk about the Ered as well because I kind of don't vibe with this either. But, you know, you have the Ram Riders as well. But obviously with all this defense, you have overall less offensive power. Meaning you are the shield, but what happens when the spear just keeps poking at the shield? The shield's eventually going to break. If your strength isn't good enough, you are eventually going to break, which is why the Ram Riders are so crucial to the Iron Hills. They are the anvil, while... Sorry, no. Your faction is the anvil, they are the hammer. If you don't have your hammer, the anvil's just going to keep getting broken. If that makes any sense. But yeah, the powerful cav does... is the entire centerpiece of the Iron Hills at the moment. I hope when Dorwinion comes in, with all the good things that I've already seen and shown, that they look really good, I hope they do make the Iron Hills feel a lot more complete and not as reliant on just defending constantly and then using Ram Riders as your constant force of action. And then we come to the Ered Luin, which has a strong hero roster for their strength over dwarf factions, although they have obviously the more difficult to master roster. You have obviously an ability to activate bonus speed, but you also can get triple damage from flanking damage compared to just the bonus armor against arrows the Guardians can get there, and the armor reduction that the Guardians of Erebor get. Your pikemen obviously rely on you to actually have them run into cavalry and vice versa. Your archers have a weird ability to have extra vision range, making them better at fighting on the walls. But the reduced damage means if you don't have fire arrows, they're doing no damage. And then the unburnt, you have to actually click and select an enemy unit to charge against. And then knocking them down, unfortunately, revenge damage can happen, and they can just get decimated. But also, you've got decent units here. This ability, Bombard, is... don't use it. Porcupine Formation, don't use it. Hold at Bay is fine. I feel like Lake Tam does need one more unit to kind of cement it. Same with Erebor. I hope the changes with Dorwinian coming in gives Dale and Lake Town more unit diversity, because they've made the outpost amazing. They just need to make the units just as amazing and worth getting over the dwarves, is my only problem with those two human factions. I feel like the Iron Hills Dorwinian troops are going to be very worth getting all the time. But we'll see about that. Now we get to how I play each of them. So for Erebor, it's honestly the simplest way to play with Erebor is, well, they are the most simple. Build a balanced army. Similar to Angmar, just get pikemen, guardians, and axe throwers. Wait until you can start getting Archangard, because your dwarf units are amazing. These dwarves are definitely the strongest and simplest to use. As long as you don't bother with the polearm hammer strike ability, and even if you don't use the cutting axes, the axe throwers still do amazing damage. And you just have to get your economy rolling. Best way of doing that is getting Dale and using these traders to just keep getting more and more economy from these fellas here. You can even negate the speed debuff that you get from being dwarves by running around on these roads once you have built the toy maker, or whichever one you get for the extra roads. I can't remember which one it is, but yeah, get the bonus for your roads from getting trade, and you'll just be better off for it. And yeah, transition into your Archangard primarily. A faction that doesn't make cavalry, you don't have to worry about pikemen. You can just go Archangard and axe throwers, and they will just struggle, because Archangard and axe throwers are amazing. So, Lothlorien, Angmar, just run them. Don't bother with pikemen except to deal with lairs. And that's honestly your best way of winning with Erebor. Your heroes you can get from time to time. If you've got the money for them, go for them. If not, I would prioritise your army first over heroes. Nori is good. Gimli is good if you need the cleave. Edain is here and there. He has got some good abilities. The every now and again, massive bonus to damage is really good. But honestly, just focus on your current strength in aggression. You've got defensive tools to boost your defense. You don't need that much more offense with the Dwarves of Erebor. It may sound very simple, what I just said, to just basically do whatever you want, basically. Just run a good balance of everything, because everything in Erebor is good. That's the point. Erebor is one of the simplest factions, one of the easiest factions to pick up next to Gondor. And honestly, Erebor doesn't need a lot of hand-holding to get good with the faction. Having Dale honestly does make the faction so good. If you are able to steamroll to begin with, you will not lose, period. You will just win. You really can just win that easily with Erebor. If you're struggling against a archer-heavy faction, get battle wagons. If you're fighting a faction that has a lot of cavalry, get some pikemen. Maybe even invest in some pikemen from Dale, because I said Dale, the more entities in a pikeman unit are better for just keeping enemies boxed in that trample you. It works. It works really, really well. Don't be afraid to just take all that strength you have and just throw it at the enemy, because it works. Next up, we have the Iron Hills. I've already shown off a lot in the past how I use the Iron Hills. It's just build enough guardians to keep yourself safe. If you're fighting a bunch of cavalry or monsters in the early game, get some pikemen too. Don't really need crossbows to start with, because you'll not really be fighting anything that you need to worry about with them. But do prepare your ram riders as soon as possible. Because it's a lot easier than it used to be. You used to have to also get elite equipment to be able to get these ram riders leveled up. Now all you need is Narin, and having Narin on the field is amazing. Each of these costs 100 each. In total, 800 resources for every single one of these ram riders. 2,400 on top of Narin, which is 1,400. 2,400, 1,400, 3,800 resources. Save that up, and you'll be flying. Make sure your economy is obviously under control, same as Erebor. But don't bother too much about your main army being your main source of power. Give it all to the Ram Riders, because they will not disappoint you. The only time I would say it's not a good time to use the Ram Riders, primarily, is against a faction like Angmar. or if you're fighting someone that is spamming nothing but pikes. Pikemen are a very annoying unit, which is why I said, again, you need Guardians. Kind of play, I guess one way of thinking this, play the Iron Hills like a more complicated version of Rohan, where you have some good, really, really good cavalry doing most of the work, but when you see those pikemen, have your buffer army clear it up. And thankfully, Edain as well can also mount on his boar, so he can join the fray with your cavalry. And yeah, rely a lot on your ram riders. They will all do so well. And when you get to the late game, when you are sieging the enemy base, Deathball, again, with the Iron Hills crossbows, in that formation, fire arrows, they can just destroy everything. It's insane how good that formation is with the Dwarves. If they had the Formations of Gondor ability for the Dwarves of the Iron Hills, this unit could actually be unkillable with enough protection, because that's 75% armor at a cost of range and vision doesn't mean much if they're already surrounded by a bunch of really competent allies in your Guardians and your Phalanx. And then lastly, we come to the Dwarves of the Ered Luin, which is, as I've said, the strength in Ered Luin is your heroes, so focus all in on your heroes. Just get as many of them as early as possible, especially if you pick characters like Botha. If you're really good at using the hill pickaxe ability like I am, you'll use it in melee, get it, pick it right back up, throw it again. Using it distracts the enemy AI so much, it is hilarious. Use Bilbo is his ability to summon gold to lure the AI into a difficult position. So your units can just ambush them from behind, because your Guardians with those sharpened axes do even more damage. Use your speed advantage as well. The Dwarven Sprint makes it so no unit can escape you, and no unit can really chase you except for cavalry, which is why you have your pikemen. And these units, they may look like just regular travelling merchants with those hoods on. This is one of the strongest pikeman units that you'll ever face. If you bring cavalry or monsters up to these guys, you better pray they are not. They are the only one, and they are not working with other pikemen as well, because these pikemen can screw you up so bad. They hurt so much. It hurts. It hurts so much it hurts. And if you want to make archers, do make archers. I don't really have a preference on which archer you should make. Both of them are kind of meh. I personally, with Ered Luin, just go all in melee, and if I need ranged units, I'll go siege. I never go siege. Although you can also go battle wagons with for ranged units, because they do come with archers for the Dwarves of the Ered Luin. But yeah, fight only when it's at your advantage. Use your speed. Use all your utility options. Just constantly knock them down. Summon your Dwarven allies to act as distractions. Knock the enemies down. Empower your heroes. Just get everything ready for Thorin, so he can just make your entire army around him invulnerable and have a massive damage boost, nearly as strong as Dane's, but is a activated ability instead of a maybe kind of thing. And then also you got your scavenger as well, so your resources are kind of better off once you get Thorin if you don't even have something like Lake Town. So yeah, getting Thorin early could even be a preference. Because like I said, 3,800 resources is what you need to get all these Ram Riders set up. Thorin is pretty much the same value as those Ram Riders, if not even more. Because he's just one entity who can spawn more entities and just gets better with your faction. It all really works out. But don't be afraid to play around a lot with the Dwarves, because they do have a lot of things going for them in every dimension. Your Men of Dale unit, the Men of Lake Town units, Men of Dale units, and the Ered Mithrin units, they do come in handy in situations where you need them. AoE Cleave, you've got the Dragon Slayer. You need to deal with monsters, and you're playing as Erebor. You've got your Bowmen, if your pikemen aren't doing enough. Also, pikemen here. If you just need if you also don't forget, like I said in the very beginning, one of your core mechanics, if you need that extra tankiness, you need that extra speed, you need that extra tankiness, you need that extra speed, you need that extra damage, go to the pony camp. How have I got so many ponies? I shouldn't have this many ponies, right? Or is that only 3 units? No, I shouldn't have this many ponies. What's going on? I thought it was only limited to 3. Yeah, no, I've broken the game. I have 6 pony units. I think that might be because when I swap the factions, it counts as a new faction, so it made me more ponies. I don't know. I don't want to know. But yeah, if you need more units, go to the pony camp. Take one of your units and get the other versions of them with the pony camp. You need your heroic units to just do massive damage. You can customize them. Damage against heroes, armored units, buildings, just standard damage. You need them to have more protection or just more damage. Look at that, twin axes. These guys are going to be absolutely murder machines against those elite enlargers. Or sword and shield. They're going to be very good at killing all of those Mordor heroes. Again, a lot of what the dwarves do is customizable to your preference, and that is what makes them one of the most fun factions to play. I think I say that for like every faction now. But yeah, the dwarves are very fun because you do have that choice of playstyle. You can play all 3 of them, find which one you like the most, and then hone in on that skill with that one faction. Get really good at them, master them, and then move on to the next one. And then be like, okay, let's try this strategy with these dwarves. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, let's try something else. I'm just giving my preference on how I prefer to play them. You guys might find a different preference that works better for you. Obviously, mine is versus AI. PvP, I don't really know what to say. But anyway, we've got one last thing to talk about, and that is how best to beat the dwarves. And this is where I say the dwarves feel very similar. When played by the AI, the dwarves don't really have a lot of variation. They do the exact same thing. They spam all their dwarven troops. If they have an outpost, they'll spam out those troops. Even Ered. They don't use the pony camps. They don't get the casualty veterans. But what they do get, and what is terrifying, is the battle wagons. Fast, single entities, monsters basically. These guys are basically monsters with how good and fast they are. In fact, they're probably better than most monsters because of the fact that they are customized by your faction. With Erebor, you have bonus trample damage. I think one of my... Yeah, they found the wall. Oh, no, they found goblins. Oh, I'm getting distracted. With Erebor, you have more trample damage. With the Dwarves of the Iron Hills, you have more defense. With Ered Luin, you have archers. And then you get the wheel blades. For Erebor, you get the tower shields for Iron Hills. And you get a crossbow. Well, one of those repeater bolt throwers that Balin used in the Battle of Five Armies movie. Which I still think is one of the funniest moments in that movie when he said, "I'm getting too old for this." Just as these one-shotting wargs. But yeah, battle wagons really, really scary. If you see even more than one of these and you have no pikemen to counter them, your army is screwed. It's done. Gonzo. Your heroes might just be dead as well. You have to be ready for these battle wagons. It's actually terrifying how good and efficient they are. They look small and simple, and some people might even think they're goofy. I don't. I love this battle wagon. But yeah, if you're not ready for them, you are screwed. The best counter to them is obviously pikemen. But next to that is cavalry. Cavalry is the best way of taking out these ram riders. Not ram riders. These battle wagons, because of how the fact that it's just a single entity. Ranged units suck against these because they don't take a lot of range damage, and they trample them instantly, killing them. Very few ranged units can survive getting trampled by these battle wagons. Honestly, spear throwers are your best bet against battle wagons. How sad that is to say, because I hate spear throwers so much. But yeah, always keep pikemen to counter the battle wagons. But unlike some factions that might cavalry spam, like Isengard, you can't just go all pikemen because their units are really, really, really good. You cannot underestimate any dwarven units. Even Ered Luin units you cannot underestimate. If you build nothing but pikemen, they are all going to die, and the battle wagons may be even more of a field day with the rest of your faction. You cannot underestimate the dwarves. Never underestimate the dwarves. Always do your best to build up strong, tall, and fast. Do the things that dwarves can't do, which is build tall and fast. Oh, that's silly of me to say, but it's true. The dwarves do struggle if they are on the back foot. So do your best to just bring their counters to the table. Monster, as I said before, if you're against Erebor, if you can make monsters, make them. They're really good. Their pikemen do not do enough. Against the Iron Hills, bring out constant aggression against them because they will whittle down and break. They're not the impenetrable shield if they don't have the hammer. Which, by the way, they don't make ram riders, so the only thing they've got to keep them safe are the battle wagons, and they don't do as well as the ram riders. I'll tell you that much. And against Ered Luin, just hit them hard because the AI does not know how to use these dwarves to their effectiveness at all. Honestly, if you play against the dwarves of the Ered Luin, you have been able to high roll against the AI. Against Erebor, you're probably going to have the hardest time because Arkengard will get spammed and they are amazing. And I rarely see the AI play the Iron Hills. But when they do some interesting things. I will admit, they can do some interesting things. Not as much as Erebor, but not as little as the Ered Luin. And that is everything for today's video. There's not a lot of factions left to go over. There's 3 main factions and then 2 of Gondor's sub-factions, Arnor and Belfalas. I will be picking one of them to go in the vote along with the other 3 main factions. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all learned something. And I'll see you all in the next one. Farewell.